Discover the incredible, life-changing reveal from Toyota's CEO for 1 million RAV4 owners today. In the heart of a small Ohio town, Sarah rushed through the doors of the community center, her heart pounding. The meeting was about to begin, and the anticipation in the room crackled like electricity. This wasn't just any meeting. It was a chance for an answer to her prayers. What she carried wasn't just the weight of her small homemade goods business. It was the hopes and dreams for her daughter, Emma. Sarah's RAV4, a gift from her late husband, was not just a car, it was a reminder of the life they had built together. It represented resilience, but now, as the bills piled up, it felt more like a ticking time bomb. Every weekend, the farmer's market buzzed with friends who felt like family, the aroma of fresh bread mingling with laughter and cheerful chatter. Yet, with every passing week, the lines at her booth thinned. Families were tightening their belts, and Sarah's dreams for Emma to attend high school fell further from reach. Each sold-out batch of her famous cookies now lingered like sweet memories, while the empty trays brought crashing reality. That evening, as she joined her fellow townsfolk, a warm wave of camaraderie washed over her. They greeted her with knowing smiles, and a tear threatened to escape her eye. But Sarah swallowed hard. The burden she carried was unshared, deep within her core. The emotional weight pressed heavy, like a storm cloud ready to burst. Just as the energy in the room built, a figure appeared on the screen. The CEO of Toyota. Murmurs of disbelief echoed through the crowd. "Hello, everyone," he started, his voice resonating with empathy. He spoke of his own family story, a journey filled with struggles reminiscent of theirs. And then came the announcement: zero-interest loans exclusively for RAV4 owners, like Sarah, who were fighting to keep their small businesses afloat. Her heart raced. Could this really be the lifeline she needed? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the CEO concluded, a silence fell like a blanket. Hope began to flicker among the townsfolk, illuminating the dim corners of anxiety. Sarah's heart swelled with a bittersweet mix of yearning and fear. What if she couldn't tackle the application process alone? What if time slipped away? Just as that fierce resolve ignited within her, the building plunged into darkness. Gasps echoed, confusion tossed in the air like leaves in the wind. In the pitch-black room, Sarah felt the pulse of her community. Uncertainty gripped her heart. Would this support truly change everything? Or would they face the darkness together, hopelessly? She felt the weight of possibility pressing down like a mountain. In that silence, a flame ignited. Would she step up? The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she sensed that they were not alone. And as hope flickered, so did a path toward their future. The darkness enveloped them for what felt like an eternity. Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs as she listened to the muffled sounds of shuffling feet and whispers. The community center had transformed from a lively gathering into a cocoon of uncertainty. She could almost hear the collective heartbeat of the crowd, a rhythm of fear and anticipation. Suddenly, light flickered back to life. The overhead bulbs buzzed and hummed, illuminating the concerned faces that surrounded her. Relief washed over Sarah, but it was quickly followed by a rush of urgency. She needed to act. The support from Toyota SEO was right there, ready for them, and now was not the time to hesitate. Sarah turned to her friend, Maria, who had a booth at the market selling handmade soap. "We need to make plans," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Maria nodded, her brows furrowed in agreement. "You're right. They'll want to know how we're going to use those loans." The energy in the room shifted. People were talking again, hearts lighting up with new ideas. The CEO's words echoed in Sarah's mind: community support can turn dreams around. These loans weren't just numbers. They were the chance for their small businesses to thrive. Together, they could innovate, expand. And, for Sarah, this meant giving Emma the opportunities she deserved. "Let us write down our ideas," Sarah exclaimed, pulling a notepad from her bag. It was a simple act, but it felt monumental. She scribbled down thoughts of workshops for baking and soap making, brainstorming sessions to teach fellow entrepreneurs the ins and outs of online sales, and shared marketing strategies. Each word felt like a stepping stone into a brighter future. As she passed the notepad around, warmth enveloped the group. One by one, neighbors and friends filled the pages with their hopes and dreams. Laughter and chatter filled the space, excitement replacing apprehension. Sarah watched, a smile breaking across her face. This was more than the loan. It was a revival of their spirit, a catalyst for change. But just as the atmosphere shifted to one of optimism, a voice broke through the din. What if we fail? A new voice, Tom, the local handyman, spoke up, his tone heavy with doubt. What if we do all this work and it doesn't help? The room fell silent again. That lingering fear crept back in, like a shadow. Sarah felt it too, the weight of potential failure bearing down on them. She opened her mouth to speak, but what could she say? Everything was so uncertain. Then she remembered Emma. The way her daughter looked at her with wide, trusting eyes, always believing things would turn out right. We have to try, Sarah said finally, her voice echoing with conviction. Even if we fail, we'll be doing it together. We can support each other, and that makes all the difference. It's about more than just the loan, it's about us. A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. The spark of hope reignited, and Sarah saw it dance in their eyes. She realized that they weren't merely relying on the announcement from a CEO. They were united as a community, willing to take that leap of faith together. As the meeting drew to a close, Sarah felt a surge of determination. She had to start the application process as soon as possible, but time was slipping away. Would they be able to move quickly enough? With renewed resolve, Sarah grabbed the notepad and held it tightly to her chest. The next chapter of their journey had just begun, and as Emma's face flashed in her mind, she thought, this was not just for her, it was for all their futures. What if they could turn this moment of uncertainty into a tide of transformation? The thought lingered, heavy with promise. Would this be the spark they needed? Or did yet another challenge lie just around the corner? The bright lights had illuminated the nervous crowd, but as the meeting ended, shadows lurked around the edges of the community center. Sarah could still feel the weight of Tom's words settling uneasily in the air. She glanced around the room, witnessing the afterglow of excitement flicker like a candle threatened by a gust of wind. Doubt lingered like a stubborn weed, and she refused to let it take root. Maria, can you help me organize everything? Sarah asked her friend, urgency creeping into her voice. The sooner we can present our ideas, the better. Maria nodded eagerly, that familiar spark of determination igniting in her eyes. They gathered a handful of volunteers, each person the thread that would weave their vision into reality. As they sat together, brainstorming and jotting down plans, the light in the room shifted. One idea would spark another, like firecrackers going off in their minds. Sarah saw a community come alive around her, a whirl of chatter and creativity. Hours ticked by as they devised a game plan, anticipating every question they could think of. But beneath the surface of the tangible excitement was an undercurrent of anxiety. What if this effort wasn't enough? What if their plans got lost among the noise of the world? As the sun began to set, Sarah caught sight of Emma, peeking through the door. The little girl's face lit up at the sight of her mother, maybe sensing the energy that radiated from the community. Mom, Emma called, her laughter lifting the spirits of the exhausted group. What are you doing? We're changing the world, honey, Sarah replied, ruffling her daughter's curls and putting on a brave smile. Emma tilted her head, the innocence of youth shining through. Can I help? The question struck deep. In that moment, Sarah realized that this wasn't just about loans or numbers. It was about families, dreams, and the infinite courage that came from believing in each other. She wanted Emma to know that big dreams took teamwork and love. Absolutely. You can help, Sarah said, her heart swelling with pride as she led Emma to the front of the room. We need to think about what we want and how it can help everyone. As they scribbled ideas together, Sarah saw a flicker of hope shared in every glance exchanged. Each note passed back and forth. They were more than individuals with small businesses. They were a family, woven together through shared aspirations. But just then, a figure stepped into the doorway, disrupting their gathering. It was the mayor, his expression serious and focused. I need to speak with you all, he declared, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. The room fell silent instantly, tension threading through the crowd. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, her heart racing as something primal told her that whatever was coming couldn't be good. "There's been a change," the mayor started, and every eye locked onto him. The future suddenly opaque and uncertain. "We received a call from Toyota." As he spoke, Sarah felt the weight of the room shift. Would it be news that shattered their hopes, or something that brought them even closer together? The tension gripped her, and an icy grip of fear snaked around her heart. She clenched her fists, determined to handle whatever might come. What was this new challenge that lay ahead? Would it bring them together or threaten to pull them apart? The final words of the mayor lingered in the air like an unresolved chord, leaving everyone hanging in the balance. What would this revelation mean for their dreams? Fear and hope danced in a delicate balance, waiting to tip one way or the other. The mayor took a deep breath, steadying himself, and continued. "The company has decided to shift its regional headquarters to another city, which means that." He paused, letting the gravity of his words hang in the air. The room collectively inhaled, eyes filled with a mix of fear and confusion. Sarah felt her stomach twist. "Which means what?" she prompted, unable to keep her unease hidden any longer. "Which means," the mayor shifted uncomfortably, "they may have to make some layoffs. There's a possibility of job cuts here in our town." Gasps echoed throughout the room, rippling through the crowd like a stone thrown in water. Sarah's heart raced. She glanced at Emma, who was still innocently scribbling with wide eyes, unaware of the storm brewing around them. She knew in that moment that this wasn't just about her and the idea they were crafting for their community, but about everyone's livelihoods at stake. "What can we do?" Maria whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. The mayor shrugged. "I don't know, but if we're going to keep our community strong, we need to act quickly. We must convince executives that moving here is beneficial. We need to rally support." "Rally support?" The idea bloomed, feeble but there. But why should they only react to the decisions of others? What if they could see the value in investing right here? Sarah thought out loud, her voice gaining strength. What if we could showcase our community's spirit, talents, and potential? Like a campaign? Maria suggested, her spirit reignited. "Exactly," Sarah exclaimed, a spark igniting within her. "We could host an event, a festival. Show them all that we have to offer: small businesses, creativity, community strength. Let them see us as more than just another neighborhood on a map." Emma looked up then, her little face beaming with an idea of her own. "Can I help too? I want to make a sign." Her innocence caught everyone off guard, a wave of warmth swiftly replacing the earlier chill. Sarah smiled at her daughter. "We all can help, Emma. This is our chance to showcase who we are." The room slowly filled with murmurs of agreement. Thoughts tangled with excitement and anxiety. It seemed almost impossible, yet they couldn't back down. Each one of the volunteers felt the weight of responsibility not just for their businesses, but for their neighbors and friends who depended on them. As the enthusiasm grew, Sarah glanced around the room and saw the doubt slowly melting away. They were ready to fight. They were ready to show their resilience. But amid their newfound determination, anxiety loomed in the back of her mind. Would it be enough? Outside, dusk began to descend, thickening the air with anticipation. This was just the beginning of something larger, and while hope flickered like the last gleams of sunlight, uncertainty loomed large. How would they pull off an event that could truly capture the attention of Toyota executives? Just as Sarah began to think through the logistics, the room was interrupted again, this time by a ringing phone. It was the mayor's phone, and a look of shock crossed his face as he answered. "Wait, you want to meet?" Every pair of eyes turned toward him, breath held. Even Emma's tiny fingers paused mid-scribble. Who was on the other end, and what was being proposed? Could this be the chance they needed? Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline surge through her veins as she leaned closer, ready to seize whatever opportunity lay ahead. What could possibly come from this unexpected call? Would it steer their plans in a new direction, or was it another setback lurking in waiting? As the mayor listened intently, his brows furrowed, and the tension in the room became tangible. "Yes, I understand," he finally said, his voice low. "But what about our community? We need—" He paused, and the murmur of anxious whispers began to circulate again. Sarah could feel her heart beating like a drum, each thump matching the anxious pulse of the waiting crowd. Emma leaned against her, her small frame offering a comforting weight. It seemed impossible that one call could hold the key to their fate. A formal proposal, you say? The mayor's voice rose slightly, a flicker of hope igniting in his tone. When can we meet? With every word he spoke, Sarah's mind raced through a whirlwind of thoughts. What if this was the breakthrough they desperately needed? What if they could not only save their jobs, but attract more investment and opportunities? The mayor hung up the phone, visibly shaken but resolute. They want to meet us in 2 days. The CEO of Toyota wants to see what this community can really do to show its value. Gasps filled the room again. This was their chance. Sarah felt a jolt of energy run through her, electrifying. What do we show them? Maria asked, her voice sharp with urgency. What should we focus on? The spirit of our people, Sarah said, her thoughts starting to coalesce. Our innovation, our local businesses, and, most importantly, how we support one another. Yes, Emma piped up, her excitement bubbling over. Can we have a parade? With music and balloons? The idea brought a wave of laughter and smiles. Balloons are a must. Sarah laughed, suddenly filled with determination. But we need to capture our heart as a community. This won't just be a parade, it'll be a celebration of who we are. As they began brainstorming, ideas bounced like confetti in the air. Food stalls featuring local flavors, performances showcasing local talent, and booths highlighting the small businesses that formed the lifeblood of their community. With every suggestion, the weight of their situation felt lighter, almost manageable. But buried deep in their excitement, Sarah wrestled with a familiar anxiety. They had 2 days. 2 days to plan an event that needed to dazzle. Could they really pull it off? The timeline is tight, the mayor warned, a note of concern creeping into his voice. Then we work all night if we have to, Maria exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with ferocity. We can do this. There was a chorus of agreement, the room now pulsating with a swell of hope. They would meet the challenge head-on. As the group began to split into smaller teams, Sarah caught the mayor's eye. He nodded reassuringly, the connection between them strengthening in that moment. Together, they would lead this charge, and they wouldn't do it alone. Hours passed quickly, punctuated by the anxious buzz of plans taking shape. Phone calls to local businesses, organizing volunteers, making posters. It was a flurry of activity that took Sarah's mind off the looming deadline, if only for a moment. But as midnight crept closer and her eyelids grew heavy, doubts began to resurface. What would the CEO really think? Would their efforts be enough to sway the executives? Just then, a notification blinked from her phone. She grabbed it and opened a message. I know this means a lot to you, but I want the best for our town. You better not fail, it read, signed with an initial she recognized instantly, their biggest competitor. A chill ran through her. Were they being sabotaged? With a mix of determination and dread, she closed her phone. As tough as it was, she realized that this was bigger than herself now. What surprises lay ahead in this fight for their community? Would they stand together, or would cracks begin to show amidst the pressure? The next day arrived, bright and crisp. The sun glinted off the morning dew, a symbol of hope that felt almost palpable. Sarah could still feel the weight of that message heavy in her pocket, but she pushed it aside. This was their moment, a moment that called for focus and determination. As the sun rose, the community gathered at the town square. Banners decorated with cheerful colors flapped gently in the breeze, and the scent of fresh coffee mingled with the aroma of fried donuts from a nearby stall. Kids played nearby, their laughter infusing the atmosphere with a joyful innocence, while adults buzzed with energy, setting up booths and decorations. Sarah stood by a table laden with flyers, ready to promote local businesses. She watched as volunteers worked in tandem, painting signs, arranging chairs, and putting up streamers. Together, they were transforming the square into a vibrant venue for the celebration. Her heart swelled at the sight, a beautiful tapestry woven with the threads of their shared ambitions. Hey, you okay? Emma asked, slipping her hand into Sarah's. Yeah, Sarah replied, though the tremor in her voice gave her away. I want this to be perfect. It will be, Emma said, smiling broadly. Just think of all the people who believe in us. Sarah managed a faint smile, but the nagging worry about the competitor's message loomed over her. She took a deep breath, hoping to calm her racing heart. We have to put our best foot forward. It's not just about us anymore, it's for everyone. With a group of volunteers, They practiced a small performance that highlighted the community spirit. A local singer was to perform a song that caught the heart of what they stood for, and the anticipation grew palpable as they rehearsed. Each note soared higher, weaving dreams into reality. But the ticking clock reminded Sarah of their deadline. They had precious hours left before the CEO arrived, and the pressure to pull off something spectacular weighed heavily on her. She couldn't shake the thought of failing under this spotlight. What if it wasn't enough? Just before the event was set to begin, Maria called for everyone's attention. "This is it, folks. We've worked so hard, and now it's time to show the world who we really are." Cheers erupted, echoing off the buildings that surrounded them. Sarah felt a surge of energy thrusting her forward, but before she could speak, the mayor stepped up towards the crowd. "Today isn't just about impressing the CEO," the mayor said, his voice ringing with authority. "It's about celebrating the spirit of our community. Let us show them our resilience and our love." As he spoke, Sarah took in the faces of her friends and neighbors. Hope was bright in every eye, radiant smiles reflecting a shared dream. This was more than a parade. It was a declaration of their unity. But just as the event was about to kick off, a black SUV rolled in, cutting through the excitement. Sarah's heart raced. It was here. The moment of truth arrived. The CEO was stepping out, flanked by a couple of suits who looked serious and analytical. Would they see what she saw? As the crowd swelled with anticipation, Sarah felt a tight knot in her stomach. This was not only their showcase, it was their fight. Would they be ready to defend everything they stood for? The first notes of music began to play, and the voices of the townspeople harmonized around her. She forced a smile, taking a step forward into the crowd. But then, something caught her eye. A glimmer of something crumpled under the edge of a nearby booth. Curious, she moved closer to investigate. What was it? Could it be just another distraction, or was it something more serious that would change everything? As Sarah knelt down to pick up the crumpled paper, her breath caught in her throat. It was an old, discarded flyer, but the words were clear, their starkness jarring against the festive colors of the celebration. "Toyota cutting jobs." The headline screamed, its bold letters glaring at her like a warning. With her heart thudding in her chest, she cast a worried glance around, afraid anyone would see the growing panic in her eyes. "Hey, what's that?" Emma asked, suddenly at her side. The light-hearted energy surrounding them dimmed as Emma peered at the paper. It's a flyer about the layoffs," Sarah stammered, the weight of it sinking in. What if this is what the CEO came to announce? What if he doesn't see what we're doing here today? What if he judges everything by numbers, by profits, and not by the spirit of our community? Emma glanced around nervously. The crowd was still buzzing around them, unaware of the potential storm gathering just below the surface. "We can't let this ruin everything," she said, voice steady but worried. "We need to push through. Show him what this community really means." But Sarah's mind raced as the music played on, juxtaposed against the gravity of the flyer in her hand. This was supposed to be a day of celebration, of love and unity, yet here was a stark reminder of the stakes involved. She felt the familiar knot tighten in her stomach. Was it all worth it if the CEO only saw numbers instead of lives? As the lead singer's powerful voice rose, lifting the buoyant themes of their performance, Sarah forced herself to look up. She spotted the CEO across the square, speaking quietly to his entourage while scanning the scene. He looked like a man who made decisions, important ones, without a second thought. But did he realize he was standing in front of real people, each with their stories, hopes, and dreams? Taking a deep breath, Sarah resolutely stepped away from the booth, tossing the flyer aside, as though she could discard her fears along with it. "We need to gather everyone," she urged Emma. "I want to make sure we're all on the same page before he talks. We can't let him decide our fate without knowing us." Emma nodded, determination flooding her eyes. "Let us make our voices heard." Within moments, they rallied their fellow volunteers, sharing Sarah's concern and igniting an undercurrent of urgency among them. They weren't just a collective, they were a force, ready to convey the essence of their community, the very heart beating beneath the banners. Time was against them, but so was despair. As the group came together, plans were laid out swiftly. The discouragement of the flyer fueled their resolve. They spoke of messages they wanted to share, lives they wanted to represent, the children playing, the vendors selling, the laughter ringing across the square. Each volunteer became a clear voice, ready to stand alongside their neighbors, whispering words of encouragement to one another. Just then, the speaker crackled to life, drawing everyone's attention. The moment had arrived. The CEO stepped up to the podium, his demeanor calm but watchful. He met the eyes of the crowd, contrasting sharply with the tension that filled the square. For a moment, it felt like time hung in the air, every heartbeat syncing with the collective anticipation. Sarah could feel a surge of energy beneath her feet, the pulse of courage from her neighbors. They were in this together, a family standing against the winds of uncertainty. As the first words of his speech began to form, Sarah's heart raced. Would he understand? Would he truly hear them? Thank you for gathering today, but before he could continue, Sarah's mind was screaming. This was it. Their moment to show him what truly mattered was now. Was it going to be enough to change the narrative? Would one speech be able to bridge the vast divide between them and the harsh reality of corporate decisions? As the crowd leaned forward, hanging on every word, Sarah steadied her breath, preparing to step into the fire. The crowd quieted, a sea of faces upturned, all waiting. Sarah felt her heart thud loudly in her chest. Just as she began to take a step toward the podium, the CEO cleared his throat, his voice commanding the attention of everyone present. Thank you for gathering today, he began, his tone smooth and rehearsed. It's been a pleasure to witness the vibrant spirit of this community. However, I must address some important changes that concern all of you, changes that affect the future of our company here. Tension rippled through the crowd. Sarah's mind raced, her instincts screaming at her to intervene. They had come together to show their worth, to present their dreams, and yet here was the CEO, ready to tuck their lives away in a neatly folded piece of paper. She glanced at Emma, who was visibly anxious, gripping the edge of the booth. In light of adjusting to new market demands, the CEO continued, we must streamline operations, which could involve some tough decisions in the coming months. Gasps echoed through the crowd, and Sarah's stomach twisted. This was it. The ominous news that hovered between them like storm clouds finally broke, and she felt despair wrap its cold fingers around her heart. But then, something inside her ignited. She could no longer stay silent. Grabbing Emma's arm, she whispered urgently, I need to do this. I can't let him just walk away with numbers without knowing the faces behind them. Are you sure? Emma asked, eyes wide. What if no what ifs? Sarah interrupted, voice firm. This is our moment. It's now or never. With determination fueling her legs, Sarah stepped into the narrow space between the audience and the podium. A few heads turned, surprised by her boldness. She felt her heart racing faster as more eyes fell on her. Was she really doing this? Excuse me, she shouted, the words flowing out with urgency. The CEO paused, surprised at the interruption. This was her chance. Excuse me, sir. We are more than numbers. This community matters. Each person here has a story that adds value to what we create together. We're not just workers. We're families. We're hopes. We're dreams. You can't make decisions that impact us without knowing who we are. The crowd erupted in murmurs, the energy shifting. Sarah felt the weight of their collective dread transform into something powerful. Eyes sparkled with renewed hope, and she could feel an invisible bond forming between her and the people surrounding her. The CEO looked taken aback, brows knitted, as if he had not expected anyone to challenge him, let alone a young woman in a bustling celebration. Ma'am, he said, trying to regain control, I assure you, we take these matters very seriously. But reforms are necessary for the longevity of the company. But at what cost? Sarah interjected, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. We need you to see us, to see the lives you're affecting. We can't just be numbers on a page. The passion in her voice sparked something within the crowd. They began to shout their agreements, calling out names of people who had built their lives around that factory. Their voices merged into a chorus, a vivid expression of unity. Sarah felt a thrill ripple through her, building the momentum of change. But in the midst of their voices rose the shadows of doubt. Was her bravery enough to break through corporate indifference? Would the CEO truly listen? With her pulse racing, Sarah awaited the CEO's response, hoping against hope that her words had pierced through the walls he had built around his heart. But just as he opened his mouth, a group of honking horns sounded from behind the crowd. A wave of confusion spread as they all turned to see a line of cars displaying brightly colored signs. The message they bore read loud and clear, "Save our jobs." What had they just unleashed? As the noise swelled into a storm of emotions, Sarah's breath caught in her throat once more. The battle for their community was far from over. But was this unexpected protest a blessing or a curse? The crowd turned en masse, eyes wide with shock at the colorful parade of cars. The loud honks continued, each car a bright banner of defiance, and Sarah felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. The momentum shifted like the wind, and she realized they were no longer just fighting for their jobs. They were rallying for their identity. A man in the front row shouted, "This is our home. We built this factory." His voice was strong, and the crowd echoed him with fervent shouts of agreement. It was as if Sarah's words had pulled a string, and now everything unspooled, exposing the raw energy of a community backed into a corner. The CEO's facade cracked slightly as he blinked at the scene unfolding. For a moment, he seemed uncertain, the careful polish of his corporate demeanor shaking. "Ladies and gentlemen," he finally said, raising his hands in an effort to restore order, "I understand the passion you feel, and I assure you, we will consider your input." Another shout cut him off, this one from a woman near the front, her eyes shining with tears. "You can't just consider it. We need you to fight for us." Her voice echoed through the crowd like a clarion call, and a ripple of determination shot through Sarah's heart. This was no longer just her fight, it was everyone's. "Can't you see?" Sarah blurted out, feeling the flames of unity surround her. "We are not just employees. We are daughters, sons, caretakers, and friends. Each decision you make sends repercussions through our families." People nodded, their faces animated with shared passion. They raised their hands as if to invoke their strength. The CEO's face paled as murmurs built into a crescendo of voices chanting for recognition, for a chance to speak not just as numbers, but as voices that mattered. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught Sarah's attention. Emma had climbed onto the booth behind her, her eyes blazing. "This is our lives. You can't sweep us under the rug because you want profits. We deserve a future." Their combined voices wove together, a tapestry of human experience demanding acknowledgement. Sarah could hardly believe how they had transformed this moment from silent desperation to vibrant defiance. The sound of the cars honking grew louder, as if amplifying their resolve. Each honk was a heartbeat, each chant a beat in an anthem of courage. Sarah looked back at Emma, who nodded fiercely, determination glowing in her eyes. This was not just a speech, it was a movement. "Let us show them we're not just here for ourselves," Sarah shouted, "but for everyone who relies on this community." A wave of solidarity swept through the crowd. People began chanting, "Save our jobs. Save our families." It resonated together like a storm ready to break. And amid this whirlwind, Sarah found herself rooted, the power in her heart pulsing with hope as she witnessed the strength of unity. Just then, the doors to the factory swung open, and a dozen employees stepped out, carrying signs that read, "We stand together." The sight ignited a fresh wave of cheers. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. This was everything they had hoped for. But as the noise swelled to a fever pitch, she caught a glimpse of the CEO, visibly uncomfortable, glancing at his phone. Was he preparing to call for backup? What would happen next? Would they finally be heard? Or would this just be another forgotten protest? As the crowd surged, chanting more fervently, the unanswered question loomed large. What would it take to make them listen? Sarah braced herself, heart pounding, as she clung to the hope that their voices could rise above the chaos. Would their collective bravery bring about the change they so desperately sought, or would they find themselves silenced once more? The crowd roared, their voices intertwining in a passionate chorus that echoed through the square. Sarah could barely hear her own thoughts above the cacophony of "Save our jobs. Save our families." Each shout surged through her like electricity, mingling with the pride blooming in her chest. This was at the moment they had transformed their fears into action, uniting as a single, determined body. But as the chaos swirled around her, Sarah felt a sudden weight settle in her gut. The CEO's previous indifference flashed in her mind, a looming shadow against the vibrant backdrop of unity. Would he truly understand the import of their voices today? The air crackled with tension, and she turned to Emma who, still standing on the booth, had sparkles of determination in her wide eyes. Suddenly, The mayor stepped forward, commanding presence cutting through the noise like a beacon. "Everyone, listen," he shouted, a wave of quiet descending as people turned to him, glancing nervously in anticipation. "We need to direct this energy. If we're going to make them understand, we must present ourselves not just today, but going forward." A collective nod spread through the crowd, a moment of clarity igniting amid the fervor. This was not just about one moment, but shaping the future of their community. Sarah felt a renewed pulse of purpose ignite within her. "We will show them we're more than just businesses or employees. We're a thriving family and a tapestry of life." Emma clapped and shouted, "Let us make signs. Make them colorful." Laughter erupted, lightening the heavy air. The crowd now buzzed with excitement and ideas. Sarah jumped down and joined Maria, each moment flickering with possibilities. Together, they rallied an army of volunteers, gathering all supplies they could find to create a vibrant display of love and resilience. Children giggled as they painted, while adults shared stories, weaving threads of connection. Slogans like "We stand together" and "Our strength is community" sprouted up everywhere, creating a tapestry of hope unfurling against the backdrop of the bustling square. Sarah's heart swelled as she watched people embrace the spirit of togetherness, each brushstroke of paint a commitment to their shared identity. Just then, a breakthrough moment shone through the noise. The CEO, who had initially looked on from a distance, began to step closer, curiosity playing across his features. Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline. Was he here to witness their transformation, or merely to dismiss it? As the crowd continued to chant and cheer, Sarah gathered her courage. She stepped forward again, though this time with a deeper sense of purpose. "Listen, everyone," she called out, her voice clear and steady. "Today isn't just an act of defiance. It's our invitation to show who we are. This community is our heart, our lifeblood. As we stand together, let us remind them that we are each other's strength." A roar of affirmation surged from the crowd, raising her spirit higher. Emma clapped excitedly from her perch, echoing her mother's fervor. And as Sarah glanced back toward the CEO, something shifted in his demeanor. He seemed to absorb the energy radiating from the crowd, the conviction in their voices starting to seep through the hard shell of corporate detachment. "And we're not just appealing to you. We're sharing our story," Sarah shouted, her pulse racing. "It's time for you to truly see us, to understand the impact of your decisions." Suddenly, the air thickened with anticipation. The CEO held up a hand, motioning for silence. The mutters and cheers faded, all eyes trained on him, the spotlight suddenly illuminating a new dynamic. "I appreciate your passion," he said slowly, a hint of contemplation crossing his face. "And in light of today, we will consider how we can strengthen our partnership with this community." Your words carry weight. Tension buzzed through the crowd. Was this it? The glimmer of hope they needed? Sarah's heart raced as breathless silence enveloped them. She exchanged a hopeful glance with Emma, who held her breath in wonder. "And promote the kind of economy that supports not just our bottom line, but your families," he continued. "I can't promise immediate actions, but I promise we will talk. We will listen." He looked around at the sea of faces filled with wonder, disbelief, and faith. The response was immediate. Cheers erupted, tears glistened, and warmth spread through the crowd like wildfire. Sarah felt the floodgates of emotion open, allowing immense relief to wash over her. They had taken the risk, stood as a family, and it had resonated as the celebration momentum continued. Sarah raised her head skyward, breathing in gratitude. It wasn't just the promise of change, but the realization of their collective strength. This was not only about preserving jobs. It was about justifying every life woven within the fabric of their beloved town. As days turned into weeks, the energy sparked by that moment continued to ripple through the community, breathing life into their dreams. Emma followed her mother into the kitchen, where the scent of freshly baked cookies danced through the air, and neighboring vendors reported a renewed flow of customers eager to support local businesses. Workshops flourished in places that had once stood silent, fueled by renewed hope and neighborly love. Sarah envisioned a life that her late husband would have proudly recognized, filled with laughter and promise, with Emma better equipped for the future they all needed to build together. And as she surveyed vibrant stalls at the farmer's market, she couldn't help but smile, realizing they had not just survived adversity, they had thrived because of it. The community was forever changed, and as Sarah glanced over at Emma, she felt a rush of warmth, a proud sense of purpose buzzing through her veins. This wasn't the end. It wasn't just about holding on. It was about lifting one another and building something astonishing. They had chosen to face the storm, and they emerged not only intact but stronger, like a tree that bends but does not break. As the warmth of connection radiated through her, an indelible strength settled into her heart. She had everything she needed to continue the journey ahead. A community that believed in each other and an unwavering will to grow. Now, this is the moment where you need to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire and empower. Leave a like now to feed that algorithm and keep these uplifting tales alive. Don't sleep on this. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation happen. Your support matters, and only true fans know how vital it is to stand together. So don't wait, not even one more second.